Okay, I want to take a look at the quiz that you all just took the other day and work through some of the solutions to that. So most of your quiz was based on the function f of x is equal to negative 4x to the 8th minus 20x to the 7th minus 24x to the 6th. So question 1, what you were asked to find is the degree. Now remember, the degree, this is the highest power of x. So if we look at this function here, the highest power of x is going to be 8. Now question 2 asks for the leading coefficient. This is going to be the coefficient of the highest power of x. And in this case, we look at the number that's in front of the highest power of x, and you get negative 4. Now moving on to question 3 and 4. So 3/4, what we're looking at is end behavior. Now, what we're looking at for end behavior, we need to look at both the degree and the leading coefficient. So we need to figure out what the degree, the question we're asking about the degree is we are saying, is this even or odd? And for the leading coefficient, the question we're asking, is this positive or negative? So in class, we talked about these 4 possibilities. Either the degree is even, the leading coefficient is positive, the degree is even and the leading coefficient is negative, the degree is odd, leading coefficient is positive, or the degree is odd and leading coefficient is negative. So those 4 possibilities give us 4 different end behaviors. So in this case, we saw that the degree was even and the leading coefficient is negative. So what that means is our end behavior, this says that as x goes to infinity, f of x is going to go to negative infinity. And as x goes to infinity, or negative infinity, f of x is also going to negative infinity. So when it's even degree, negative leading coefficient, this is always the case. Now, if it's different, let's say, for instance, it was an odd degree with, say, a positive leading coefficient, well, then we would get a different end behavior. That would be as x goes to infinity, f of x goes to positive infinity, and as x goes to negative infinity, f of x goes to negative infinity. So this is our, let me erase that. So this is our end behavior. All right, so now if we move on to question 5, the next thing we're looking at are zeros and multiplicities. So to find zeros, what you're basically finding, these are similar to x-intercepts. So remember, these are not x-intercepts because they're not points, they're just x values. So to find an x-intercept, you set the whole thing equal to 0. So you have 0 equals negative 4x to the 8th minus 20x to the 7th minus 24x to the 6th, and now you begin to factor. So you take out the greatest common factor that's in everything, and that is negative 4x to the 6th. You're left with an x squared plus a 5x plus 6. And then if you continue to factor this, you get a x plus 3 times x plus 2. And so when you set each of these terms equal to 0, so you set each of these factors equal to 0, you're going to get x is equal to 0, x plus 3 is equal to 0, and x plus 2 is equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 3 and x is equal to a negative 2. So these 3 are our zeros. Now the multiplicities, so the multiplicities, these are going to be the exponents of the factors. So if we look at this x minus 2, this came from this factor of x plus 2. So this guy has a multiplicity of 1, because that's the exponent of the x plus 2 term. This one, we look up here, this has also a multiplicity equal to 1. But x equals 0, that came from this x to the 6th term. And so this has a multiplicity that is equal to 6. So these are the multiplicities that go to the corresponding 0. So remember, whatever the factor is, those will have an exponent. That exponent tells you the multiplicities. Now, question number 6, now we switch to division. So we're looking at x squared plus 5x minus 9 divided by x plus 2. You could do any form of division. Most of you did synthetic, so I'm going to take a look at synthetic. So you put negative 2 in the box. So even though it's x plus 2 over here, remember, you put in the thing that makes the denominator equal to 0. And then we put the coefficients of what we're dividing into over here. First step is we drop this down, and then we multiply the negative 2 times the 1 to get negative 2, and then we add, and then we multiply to get negative 6, and then we add to get negative 15. And so what this part here, this is telling us our quotient, and this part over here is our remainder. So what the quotient truly is from this is that this is x plus 3. So remember, these have powers of x that are 1 less than what they were to begin with. So we start out with an x squared, so this just becomes an x term. And then the next term was something times x, this just becomes just a constant. So your answer for quotient was x plus 3, your remainder should have been negative 15. Now many of you did try to use this fact that this is equal to x plus 3 plus a negative 15 over x plus 2. Now this is absolutely true, so this is great. It just wasn't the form that I was looking for the answer. Then question 7, we had another division, x to the 5th minus 20 over x plus 1. So many of you did synthetic division again. So you put negative 1 in the box. And we put the coefficient of x to the 5th, which is 1. But remember, we have to include zeros for all of our missing powers of x's. Because this is the same thing as x to the 5th plus 0 x to the 4th plus 0 x cubed plus 0 x squared plus 0 times x plus, or minus 20. So we have that 0 goes there, that 0 goes there, we have another 0, and we have a negative 20. So we have our x to the 5th, x to the 4th, x cubed, x squared, x, and then our constant term. So we drop down our first number, we multiply, we add, we multiply, we add, we multiply, we add, we multiply, and we add, and then we multiply here, and we get a negative 21. So remember, we just were asked for the quotient for this question, so we're just looking at these terms. So this corresponds to an x to the 4th minus x cubed plus x squared minus x plus 1. And so this is what our quotient would be in this case. So those were all of the quiz questions. Hopefully that helps clarify any mistakes or any questions that you had. I tried to leave comments on the quiz, so if you don't see those comments, please let me know. I tried to give feedback for your specific mistakes that you made if there were comments that I could make.